There are two ways of thinking about modes. One is relative, which is a C Ionian, is a D Dorian, is an E Phrygian, is a F Lydian, and so on. Now, a lot of people learn this as a way to get used to your fretboard and learn scales all along the neck. I find the cage system to be better, and I'll explain why. Second way is going to be parallel, which I'm sure you've done this already if you're familiar with your major and minor pentatonics. If you play a C major pentatonic and a C minor pentatonic, you're playing those two scales in parallel, meaning that you have one root note and that you're switching between a major and a minor. Now, what this kind of does is that this makes our modes be their own entities. We're not thinking about, well, D Dorian is the same as, none of that. We're thinking of C Ionian is C Ionian. C Dorian is C Dorian. C Mixolydian is C Mixolydian. It's its own thing. Okay? Now, I'm not going to be going through the different positions and how we play this all over the neck. I have another series of videos in which I talk about using the cage shapes and learning our different scales that way. But what I will talk about is that there are basically two main scale types. Surprise, surprise, they are major and minor. And each major and minor has a different subset, which are these modes. Okay? So if we're thinking about majors being here, they have almost lines down here that, okay, we can do Ionian, we can do Mixolydian, or we can do Lydian. Same thing with minor. We have minor, and then below that we have Aelian, Dorian, Phrygian. Okay? So what are the difference between those couple modes? C major. This is kind of my home base, my chord that the song is revolved around. All right? Theoretically. We have C Ionian, which is just our normal major scale. Most of the time, songs will revolve around that, especially in pop music. Okay? For a Lydian sound, all we have to do is raise the fourth. It's the exact same scale, only now we have a sharp 4. 1, 2, 3, not 4 there, 4 there. 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, 7, back to root. Now, a C Mixolydian is the same as our Ionian or a major scale with a flat 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, back to root. Same thing with our minors. Our normal minor scale is our Aelian. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, back to root. Our Dorian is going to be with a sharp 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sharp 6, 7, 1. Our Phrygian is going to be 1, flat 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Now that we're thinking about each scale as it's being its own thing, now how do we recognize where we play it? Basically, there are two ways of thinking around that. One is we're going to analyze our chords and seeing if it's telling us what chord to spell out, and two, it's not giving us enough information, so we can kind of use whichever we want. Okay? So, I'm going to give you a couple tricks on being able to notice when things are different. Now, for most pop music, and what I'm going to be focusing on today is being able to tell the difference between major and Mixolydian. I find those two to be the most common, and then minor, Aelian, or Dorian, which are the two most common minor keys. 9 times out of 10, if it's not going to be a normal major scale, Mixolydian is going to be the one that we're aiming for. 9 times out of 10 in pop music, if it's not a normal minor scale, Aelian, then we're going to be choosing Dorian for it. So first, we need to determine what our home base is. I'm going to be basing everything today around our G note. Okay? So G major or G minor. So if we're taking a look at a home base of G major, and we're playing a whole song, 3-4 minutes worth around G major, and we're using different chords, we should be able to tell whether or not that's major or Mixolydian. The easiest way to tell is what's different between those two scales. The 7th. In a normal major scale, we have our 7th, which is a half step below the root note. So if we're taking a look and we're playing anything that involves an F sharp, most commonly that's going to be a D chord that has an F sharp in it, that is a half step before the G, that is going to tell us right away that it's just our normal G scale. All right? Another common way to tell if it's Mixolydian right away is that if we're using an F note instead. For example, G, F. If we see a G chord, G major chord, and an F major chord, that immediately tells me it's going to be Mixolydian. All right? So we can take that same formula everywhere. If our home base is going to be one note, and we see a major chord a whole step before it, that is going to be Mixolydian. Whether it be A, G, or C, B flat, a major chord, then a whole step before it, a major chord. No matter what order that is, that's going to tell us Mixolydian. Okay? So, there we go. That's going to be the most common use of it. Whether it's G, F, C, G. Now, we know that we have G. Whole step before that is F. There we go. Now, if I also had the same progression, or a similar progression, which is G, C, F, G. There we go. We're going to know Mixolydian there. Now, how do we tell between Aelian and Dorian? We can use a similar pattern. A common chord progression for a Dorian pattern is going to be a minor bar chord, for example, G minor, with a fourth above it, C, major bar chord. So if I'm G minor, C major. That's a very common, you'll see that all the time in pop music, where it's G minor, where it's on the 6th string root, a minor chord, on the 5th string root, a 4th down, or on the same fret, just on the 5th string, major, that is going to be a Dorian. Reason being is that C has a raised 6th in it, compared to our normal minor scale. Now, if it was G minor and C minor, that's telling us exactly flat 6, raised 6. So that C chord, being major or minor, is telling us exactly what's going on there. Now, like I said, it could be in a different order. But I know that we have that C major there, or a minor chord, 5th string root has a major chord. Then I know that it's going to be G Dorian is going to be my scale. So those are a couple ways of being very easily to tell whether or not you need to use a different mode for it. And like I said, these are the most common usages of the modes, but not the only usage. All right?